Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Council. Before we begin, I would just like to remind everyone that the meeting will be shown live on the internet. It will also be stored as part of the Council's webcast archive and will be available for viewing at a later date. I have the discretion to suspend or stop the filming if, in my opinion, allowing filming to be continued would affect the proceedings of the meeting. Members are again reminded that the cameras are activated by the microphone system. Microphones must be switched on before members start to speak and switched off immediately after members finish speaking. I would also remind everyone who refers to a page in the proceedings to give time for the other councillors to find a page. Do you have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Provost. I have apologies for absence this morning from Councillor Waters.
Thank you. Do any members have any declarations of interest to make in respect of any items on the agenda in this morning's meeting? I have a declaration to make regarding the Leisure Trust.
Councillor, a member of the IGIB.
Okay. Councillor Lafferty.
Declaration as a member of the IGB.
Councillor Montague.
I also have a non-financial interest in the items referring to the East Renfrewshire Culture and Leisure Trust.
Okay. Councillor
thank you, Provost.
Buchanan.
Thank you, Provost. Yeah, a member of the IGB.
Councillor Hay.
I'm a member of the East Renfrewshire Culture and Leisure Trust Board.
I'm a member of the Integrated Joint Board.
Okay. Councillor Gilbert.
Member of the Culture and Leisure Trust. Thank you.
Is that everyone? You don't have to leave the room. Item 3, Treasury Management Strategy Report. This report advises the proposed Treasury Management Strategy for 2016-17 and is asking that the Council approve the strategy, including the amendment of the Treasury Management Practices in accordance with Annex F. The report was considered by the Audit and Scrutiny Committee last week, and I would like to invite Councillor Wallace, Chair of the Audit, to comment. Councillor Wallace, you wish to comment?
Thank you, Provost. Yes, as you know, this came before the Audit and Scrutiny Committee last week, and we're indebted to the Council's Chief Accountant, Barbara Clark, for providing a very concise and very good overview of the Treasury Management Strategy Report. The movement of funds within the Council is a kind of lesser-known activity that does go on, and I know certainly that we're keen to get some more training for councillors on this. But as far as any comment directly on the strategy report, in the absence of a crystal ball, which I believe is with Landesbank just now, I think what we'd like to do is approve this report. It's showing great prudence, which I think is the correct manner in which we should be managing our funds at the moment. Thank you, Provost.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Provost. In relation to page 13 of the report, can I say first of all, I do appreciate the Audits and Scrutiny Committee's role in examining Treasury management, which it's a burden that I'm grateful that they're shouldering on our behalf. But I was just wondering on page 13 of the report, there's a wee bit of it's very interesting. There's comments on the American economy, the European economy, the situation in China, in Greece. I just wonder, is that particularly relevant to us as a small local authority in Scotland? How the performance of the Greek government has any bearing? Or is this just to provide a wee bit light relief to the report?
Councillor Wallace, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, Provost. I would say it's critical to any organisation, even any person that happens to have £10 in their local bank, because it's very much dependent on what is going on in the world economy. And I have to agree with you, with Councillor Lafferty, through you, Provost, that the information that we're afforded in this paper is very valuable information, and I have to say that it's put forward in exceptionally readable wording and structure. And again, sorry? Clearly not, Councillor Lafferty, but there we go, thank you.
Okay. Can we approve the report? Thank you. Item 4, East Renfrewshire Council Revenue Estimates 2016-17 and 2017-18. We have before us this morning the proposed revenue estimates for the Council for 2016-17 and indicative estimates for 2017 and 18. In terms of standing orders, I am seeking your consent to allow members to exceed the time limits on speeches. Is this agreed? I would now like to invite Councillor Fletcher, Leader of the Council, to comment on the report.
Thank you very much, Provost, and good morning, colleagues. This morning, I will be outlining a budget for you today which strives to protect frontline services and jobs. Over the course of this presentation, I will set out our budget for next year and set an indicative budget for the year after. Despite the unprecedented financial challenges we are facing right now because of long-term cuts to local authority funding, the recent grant settlement reduction from the Scottish Government and significantly increased service and pay bill pressures, we will balance our budget during 2016-17. I'm pleased to announce that no compulsory redundancies will be required in delivering this financial year's budget. And also pleased to confirm that we stand by our important commitment to staff to increase the living wage to £8.33 per hour from April 2016. I can also confirm that our 2016-17 budget will see no change to council tax rates. However, in bringing forward a balanced budget for 2016-17 to you today, we have had to take some very difficult decisions to ensure that we can meet our very real financial challenges head on. The severe financial picture that we face right now, and in particular during 2017-18, cannot be underestimated. There is absolutely no doubt that there are very tough times ahead to meet the challenge of an increased savings target. The budget that I am about to set out explains these challenges in detail. It demonstrates how we are constantly striving to innovate and maximise efficiency at every level in East Renfrewshire. I wish to thank my administration colleagues, our trade union partners, our staff and accountancy and our corporate management team for their steadfast commitment to bringing forward this budget, whilst always keeping front and centre the protection of our ambitious programme of capital investment and their fundamental priority to direct resources to those residents who need it most. Members will know that we expected a cash reduction to our funding by the Scottish Government going forward. However, the level of reduction announced in December 2015 is unprecedented. It was also unexpected. We originally anticipated a cash settlement reduction of around 1% and had identified a number of savings based on this projection. However, our settlement actually reduced by 2.1%. Taking into account the fact that this reduction comes at a time of increased pressure in spending, the real terms reduction to our budget equates to around 5.2% for 2016-17 and therefore a significantly greater savings gap than originally anticipated. Responding to the late settlement and understanding its full impact has been a Herculean challenge for this administration and our officers because of the lack of clarity on the detail of the settlement. In particular, it has been a major challenge for all councils to get the detail needed in the way in which the Scottish Government's £250 million fund for integrated joint boards is to be administered, and what proportion of that money is available to councils. It is only through the lobbying of the Scottish Government by COSLA that clarity around the use of this money has been forthcoming, and in the case of East Renfrewshire, this has helped the position for 2016-17. The result of these factors is that our 3-year savings target has increased from £22 million to almost £24 million. We have already identified significant savings of almost £17 million. However, the amount of savings which still need to be found to meet the new £24 million target has now increased to £7 million. I believe it's important to stress, however, that before we had clarity in the use of the integrated joint board money, our original financial projections were even worse. And until only a few weeks ago, we were facing the prospect of a £26 million savings target over 3 years, with a savings gap of £8.5 million. The Scottish Government grant settlement comes with a number of conditions that we must meet in order to avoid further financial penalty. For the 9th year in a row, we've been asked to keep council tax rates frozen or face a penalty. At the same time, maintain pupil-teacher ratios for 2016-17. We also have to increase the living wage to social care staff working for ERC's care providers, and this is a condition of the settlement. We are also dealing with a number of other financial challenges this year, which include a withdrawal of national insurance relief that we must now absorb, which will cost East Renfrewshire Council £2.4 million per annum. Furthermore, the grant settlement is a cash reduction, and there is no provision in the settlement to help us cover inflation, pay increases and service pressures. Our service pressures, in fact, are more acute than ever this year, as we're seeing year-on-year increases in our population, and in particular the very young and the very old, with both groups accounting for the vast majority of our service provision. Taken together, these very serious pressures have combined to create a perfect storm of financial challenge. Last February, we announced a long-term 3-year financial plan which would see us deliver savings of some £22 million over the 3 financial years from 2015 to 2018. However, the impact of long-term cuts to local authority funding, the recent Scottish Government grant settlement, together with the pressures of pay bill and inflationary costs, means that we now need to save nearly £24 million over 3 years. As a prudent council, we have been working towards making these savings. We already have clear plans for nearly £17 million of these savings, which means we now need to identify plans for a further £7 million of recurring savings by 2017-18. During year 1, we achieved a savings target of £3.6 million. Our original 2016-17 savings target was £9 million, with some £114,000 still left to be found. However, the savings required for this financial year have now risen to £10 million, with an increased gap or shortfall of £1 million. Thanks to the long-term planning view we took last year and a prudent management of budgets, we have been able to respond quickly to the unexpected funding gap for 2016-17. However, I would like to point out that the original picture for 2016-17 saw us facing a potential savings shortfall of £2.5 million, and had it not been for funds that are available to us through the IJB fund, we have only now, in fact, recently been given confirmation that this money will be recurring and indeed will be available to us in forthcoming years. For 2017-18, Our original estimate was that we would need £9.4 million of savings on top of what we require in 2016-17. We've reviewed this estimate and it's now up to £10.3 million. Through our forward planning, we'd identified around £5 million of savings to go towards that gap, with a further £4.4 million still to find. However, because of the impact of the recent grant settlement, the fact that we cannot make the teacher-pupil ratio savings which we previously anticipated, and the increased demand in our services, means that the savings gap for 2017-18 has now increased from £4.4 million to £6 million. Again, we originally anticipated a much worse savings gap of some £8.5 million for 2017-18, and the confirmation we have now received that IJB monies are available to us in future years has reduced the savings gap to £6 million. Whilst a significant proportion of the 2017-18 savings will have to come from further departmental efficiencies, the administration does not expect the full £6 million to come from efficiencies alone. Savings will also come from a range of other measures, which may well include reductions in services, the use of reserves as a one-off measure, and increased revenue through property tax during the year 2017-18. Until the outcome of the Scottish election is known in May, there is of course uncertainty about the future financial picture for local authorities. As a prudent council, therefore, we must take early action in the coming months to identify a package of further savings to address the predicted shortfall for 2017-18 based on what we know, and the preparatory work for this will need to be undertaken in 2016 to allow for implementation early on in 2017. As we work through this process, our focus, as always, will be in the protection of frontline services and the protection of jobs. East Renfrewshire Council already has a proven track record of delivering savings and efficiencies effectively. Over the past 6 years, we have already delivered savings of more than £37 million. Through a strong focus on service modernisation, innovation and improvement, the majority of these savings have been found by being more efficient in all that we do. It is also important to recognise that many of the changes we've made to services and how we operate are changes we would have made regardless of the financial outlook. This is simply because they're the right changes to make and they represent best practice. Over the past 12 months, we've made major strides in our innovative programme of service redesign to further modernise the way we work, improve our services and achieve optimal efficiency. For example, we've transformed the way we deliver care at home services to many of our most vulnerable residents. Our new model of home care service has helped hundreds of residents to regain their independence following hospital discharge. We are helping residents cope with short-term physical problems so they can stay in their own homes and recover in familiar surroundings, while at the same time freeing up our residential and NHS partner services for those who need it most. Phase 1 of this programme has resulted in savings of £440,000 and a further £370,000 is expected to be generated as a result of Phase 2. Also building on the success of our Public Service Excellence programme, which generated £4.9 million in savings, our vision to achieve a fully digital and modern council has been further embedded throughout our workforce through the launch of our modern, ambitious programme, MAP for short. MAP is already changing the way our services are delivered and contributing to future efficiencies. We are on track to deliver our aspiration of being a digital organisation, and significant efficiencies continue to be generated through hosting a broad range of services online, again freeing up our frontline teams to help those who need it. For example, thanks to the volume of council business that is now undertaken online by residents, our Customer First and Money Advice team can help those impacted by welfare reform changes, including moving onto the Universal Credit Scheme, where there is a presumption by government that people will have the digital skills and know-how to fill out their applications online. Our investment in digital infrastructure for our staff and locations is central to realising our full digital potential and to supporting an increasingly agile and cost-efficient workforce. Despite the major challenges to our revenue position, this budget commits a record investment of £155 million in capital projects over the next 8 years. Through our ambitious capital schemes, we will ensure continued investment across our 5 SOA priority outcomes. These investments will drive growth, support the delivery of new schools, ensure our exciting City Deal plans are delivered, and create opportunities for all. Some of the key projects over the next 2 years alone are highlighted here on the screen in front of you. We understand fully that this is a very uncertain time for our staff and our residents. And while the circumstances of the 2017-18 budget forecast are not of our making as a council or an administration, we will strive to give as much certainty and clarity as we can, as soon as we can. It is important to understand, however, that until the outcome of the Scottish election is known, and until we are given our final 2017-18 grant settlement figure, definitive financial figures for the next year cannot be confirmed. I want to reassure our community and indeed our workforce that this will be a transparent and inclusive process. I also stress in the strongest terms that our focus will be in the protection of jobs and frontline services. In particular, we will continue to prioritise services for the young, the elderly and the most vulnerable in our community. In conclusion, can I once again thank everyone who has been involved in what has been a very difficult budget process this year. I ask the Council this morning to approve the revenue estimates for 2016-17, to approve the indicative revenue estimates for 2017-18, to approve the recommended level and utilisation of reserves, to determine the Council Tax Band D level for 2016-17 at £1,126, and note that the management of the Council's finances and service plans will continue to be undertaken on a longer-term basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Buchanan.
Thank you, Provost. Colleagues, I second Councillor Fletcher's motion and commend the revenue estimates to the Council. It is clear that the prudent long-term planning view of budgets taken by East Renfrewshire Council has certainly helped us to respond to the financial pressures currently being experienced. I too would like to reassure our staff and residents that in working to close the savings gap for 2017-18, the absolute priority of East Renfrewshire Council will be on the protection of frontline jobs and services with a focus on the most vulnerable in our community. We have an impressive track record delivering efficiency hand in hand with service improvement. In particular, the continued efficiencies that we continue to reap through the digitisation of services remains the bedrock of our ongoing programme of innovation and improvement, whilst continuing to generate savings. It is testament to the strong and robust financial management of ERC that despite our challenges, challenged revenue position, we are nonetheless committing to a record level of capital investment. With £155 million being invested in flagship capital projects right across East Renfrewshire over the next 8 years, I am confident that we will ensure continued economic growth and deliver state-of-the-art facilities and assets for the communities we serve. Our City Deal projects, which in themselves total some £44 million, will enhance transport links and deliver new homes and modern business accommodation. City Deal investment will also transform the Dams to Darnley Country Park with the creation of a new visitor centre and water sports park. In fact, the planned Wake Park Centre will make East Renfrewshire one of only a few destinations for one of the fastest growing sports in the world. I am also very proud of the exciting projects which demonstrate our clear ongoing commitment to investing in our young people. In particular, ERC is world leading in our development of the £18.2 million Joint Faith Campus, which is already underway in Newton Mearns for our Catholic and Jewish communities. These and other vital capital schemes we are planning will help ERC offset some of the impact of its revenue position and drive growth when and where it is needed most. I am therefore of the view that this budget has been well prepared and that it addresses the key priorities for the residents of East Renfrewshire during what is an undoubtedly challenging period of Westminster-driven austerity. I would like to thank all those involved in bringing this budget together, in particular our staff, who have done a fantastic job, as always, and are committed to delivering quality services and ensuring that we are a top-performing authority. Thank you, colleagues. Happy to commend the report.
Thank you, Councillor Buchanan. Could you switch off your mic, please? Do we have any amendments?
Thank you very much, Provost. Can I begin by including all those, well, including the Chief Executive, Directors, Heads of Service, and especially Margaret and Crossan, for their presentations and assistance in providing the answers and the figures when compiling this amendment. Can I also pay tribute to all those who have worked so hard in producing the Council budget in difficult times? But as we know, these times didn't have to be so difficult. As I am told that the Finance Secretary in Holyrood has a war chest of over £500 million, yet he chooses to sacrifice Council budgets by 3.5% across the country, with, as the leader has already alluded, with East Renfrewshire share being a 2.1% cut in cash terms and a swinging 5.2% in real terms, with no provision for pay awards and or inflation. He also attaches several conditions that we know local elected councillors have little or no choice other than to comply. In my view, this is not anywhere near a democracy, but under this Holyrood government is nothing short of a dictatorship. However, in preparing my budget amendment, I was under the same constraints as the amendment. Therefore, then my amendment is not instead of the administration's budget, but to complement it. And I'm not used to complimenting the administration. I don't think I need to tell anyone in this chamber that absence rates within the council is very poor, and in fact I'm told they're the second worst of any council in Scotland. We really need to address the problem as it is getting worse. And to try and manage the absence, I'm proposing withhold the first day's pay to absent staff. Now, we could do that to 3 days, but this is just the first day. And that would save 107, well, you've got the figure, 107,147 in the Education Department alone, with a further saving of 215,000 across the remainder of the Council. I am also told that to carry out a thorough review of absence, the overtime and the overtime to cover that absence, and the use of agency staff, which is a major cause of the disgraceful and shameful decision to sell Bonnet House, could save up to and possibly beyond 250,000. Of course, some people might think in the opposite side of the chamber that this is an attack on council staff, but I would suggest the exact opposite. With further savings of £6 million to be identified for next year and the promise of no compulsory redundancies this year, no such promise has been made for next year, nor can be. If these savings can be realised, this has a potential of saving 30 of our lowest paid staff jobs, and some of these staff are the very people who we as councillors depend on to do our own jobs. In mentioning education, which is where the biggest chunk of our money is spent, and I'm well aware there are very few areas we can reduce spending, but in the last years there was a provision to reduce heating by 5%. I've spoken to several teachers, classroom assistants and students, and I'm told that the schools are still too warm, and the first thing they do is throw off their jackets and open windows. So I'm proposing to go up just that little bit further, and a further reduction of 2% in heating in schools would realise a saving of £30,000. I'm also proposing a radical overhaul of fees and charging, including burial charges, which include forward selling of burial plots. Someone tried to argue against that recently and said that all the plots with nice views would be snapped up very quickly. I countered that by suggesting that residents of our cemeteries are not really that bothered about the view. Estimated sales of layers could be roughly about 25 layers per annum at £3,000 per layer, which would generate a 2016 income of £75,000, with a review of fees and charging generating a further £50,000. In listening to a recent cabinet meeting, which I don't do all that often, I must admit, I was impressed with the recent recycling initiative reported to Cabinet, and I'm told could generate savings of up to £50,000. So let's get on with it. Only 3 years ago we had one traffic warden covering the whole of East Renfrewshire, which was clearly not enough. But to the current figure of 19, it's not so much traffic wardens but community wardens, is quite obviously more than we can afford. And I'm proposing that when the next two community wardens move on to other jobs, these posts should remain unfilled, giving a council saving of £50,000. I accept that the council wardens do much more than just traffic duties and will have slightly more to do when parking charges are introduced, but most of these parking duties will be carried out from inside their vehicle. Similarly, I am proposing to reduce community planning department by 2 posts. It is now a reality that there have been a 50% reduction in community councils with East Renfrewshire due to the council's illegal scheme introduced last year. I use that word quite openly now, as it has come to light that after the council had taken that decision to introduce the scheme, the external legal advice sought by Community Planning Department stated that we would likely lose any subsequent legal challenge. And that is the truth. That is the truth, Alan. And with the reduction of 2 posts, we will not need such a generous support service. Therefore, I propose to cut the budget accordingly. And now that ER magazine at last will be going to the great press office in the sky, there will be less work for the PR department. Therefore, I propose to reduce also by 1 post. Obviously, present company accepted. I watch with interest the job vacancy list that they produce each week, perhaps to see if there's any suitable jobs for redundant Labour MSPs. But I did notice in last week's list an offer for a refugee resettlement officer. Can I propose that we use someone already that we employ, as I'm aware that we have some wonderful members of staff who can quite easily multitask. Therefore, I'm proposing to withdraw that offer of job and save £20,000. I'm also proposing a radical overhaul of winter maintenance expenditure. As at present, we get 65% of our road network, and I'm assured that the highest figure in Scotland. As an example, if we were to withdraw our crews between midnight and 5 AM, there would be a potential saving of £100,000 with no reduction in routes. If we were to accept these figures, I would propose almost doubling the number of our grip bins through the authority at the cost of £50,000, leaving a net saving of £50,000. There are 317 grip bins at present, with 18 community bins, and a substantial increase in grip bins would help a lot of local people. In reading the budget papers, we see corporate and community support services a large year-on-year budget increase, and I am proposing that the support services maintain the current budget, thereby saving the council a whopping £383,000. Can I emphasise this is not a cash reduction, but merely maintaining their current budget, although possible a reduction in real terms factoring in inflation. Once again, I make no apologies for returning to savings we made with workforce planning with the social work department. I am assured that by introducing this year's savings, around £500,000 could be achieved this year and over £1 million next year. Can I also say that I'm not really qualified to speak in this one? I ask that my colleague Councillor Swift be allowed to address the Council on this issue. I really wanted to bring forward Council proposals to charge for parking, but I've been assured that this will not be possible because of all the regulations. I know several East Renfrewshire Council car parks are used for residents and neighbouring authorities who use them for park and ride. Car parks such as Patterton, Neilson and Barhead are used by North Ayrshire residents, Busby and Clarkson by residents of South Lanarkshire. Whilst I welcome anyone into the authority area, I would prefer that they could patronise our local businesses as well. So I think they would accept a small parking charge. Those of us who attend meetings in such places as Glasgow City Chambers know the price of parking in the centre of Glasgow. Could I urge the Environment Department to move with the Council's proposals for parking charges with all haste? With all these savings, can I leave an identified total of 1.8 million or just over? It has to be recognised that in making savings or cuts, the mistakes have been made. It is my opinion that a major mistake was made last year by cutting school librarian posts by a massive 50%. And it was only after I started investigating the enormous amount of work that school librarians do that I fully appreciate the contributions to our education system. Therefore, I think to cut the post by 50% and leave 50,000 and to save 50,000 was an error, and we should reinstate these posts forthwith. Not particularly, it's up to the Council whether they reinstate the staff, but certainly reinstate the posts. We know the Conservatives are banging the drum year on year about the state of our roads, and each year they seem to get worse. We really do have to reinvest in our road infrastructure simply because if we don't get the basics right, or if we do get the basics right, everyone will benefit, not just road users. Some of our communities are not well served with public transport, and in these places a car is an essential for life. Nor can we forget that everything we buy in a shop has to be got there on the back of a lorry at some stage, and all our goods come in by road. Personally, even Betty's fags come in by road. Personally, I almost witnessed an accident where a car swerved to avoid a pothole and nearly went off the road. As another example, one of my constituents was bemoaning the fact, when I met him yesterday in Asda, that Waterfoot Cross is in such a state of disrepair. There was a serious accident there last summer. And it was assured 4 years ago by Charlie Armstrong that this location will be renewed in 2017, but whether that will be the case, who knows? Perhaps we'll have to wait for another accident. And in Paul Bay Crescent and Eaglestone, I think their local councillors had recently had emails about it, and I think it's possibly the worst road surface in East Renfrewshire. I know the 700,000 proposing to spend in the roads extra is not nearly enough, but it will be a start, and if accepted, will demonstrate this administration's commitment to improving our road network. Refusal to this proposal will prove that this administration really doesn't care. I'm well aware that some of the things contained in my amendment some councillors find hard to accept, but you will look very, very silly if you come along here next year and you're trying to fill a £6 million funding gap and you have to take a fresh look at some of the things or all of the things I'm proposing today. I know it's tradition for administration councillors to vote down an amendment, and I know the Budget Strategy Group have worked very hard, and I give them credit for that. But to give them a steer for the officers to propose the budget. But by saving over £1 million this year, I'm hoping that we can save some staff jobs for next year, when whether it's the Nationalist government or any other government that get into Holyrood, block grant is allocated, and the cuts will really bite. Therefore, can I recommend it to the Council to accept this amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Do you have a seconder?
I'm obliged, Provost. I don't propose to go through the details of the budget as shown by Councillor Miller. I will, however, confine my comments to some of the strategies carried out by the administration over the past couple of years. As Councillor Fletcher indicated earlier on, this is a 3-year financial plan. However, what we've discovered this morning, last year, and will undoubtedly discover next year, it is neither long-term prudent, strong nor robust. To give you the facts as they are, a 3-year financial plan gives you a choice. You either impose your cuts in the first year by front-loading, on the last year by end-loading, or you spread it evenly across the 3 years. As I indicated in my budget last year, you did not front-load, but left yourself £4.4 million short to find in the following 2 years. You have signally failed to do so. It seems to me that, like every other council in Scotland, you were hoping that the Financial Secretary, Mr Swinney, would allow you to increase council tax this year in order to find that shortfall of £4.4 million. That is not only politically naive, but economically childish to think that a Finance Secretary is going to allow you to increase council tax just 3 months before a Scottish election. So now you're in the case where you have to find yet more cuts this year and drastic cuts next year. Had you followed my plan last year and Councillor Miller's plan this year, you would not be 4.4 million in the hole and 6 million in the hole next year. You would be 2.2 million in the hole this year and 4 million in the hole next year. The basic problem is that the administration have no idea what long-term means. All you do with your budgets and everything else in this council is things to get you through to the end of next week. Well, the bills have just come due and you don't know how to pay them. I commend the amendment.
Right. Right, and now open up the meeting to other members who wish to add anything to it. Councillor Swift.
Thank you very much, Provost. I enjoyed that, Betty. Thank you. I did. Stuart, Councillor Miller asked me to speak to the social work bit of his amendment. And I think we would all, round the council, welcome the effects of reablement, which is a good use of resources, and nobody would deny it. It's better for clients, it's better for us, it's better for the local taxpayer, it's better for everybody. It's an everybody win bit. Stuart referred to reorganisation of the social work force. And I think we've put this forward before. It's been implemented in Manchester. They audited what social workers did. A third of what social workers did was complex, proper social work. A third of it was very simple social work, sort of rearrangement or initiation of very basic packages. And a third of it was administration. What they did was they then encouraged their social workers to do the complex bit of social work that only social workers can do. And the 2/3 of other stuff, they decided that with a criteria-based decision-making, they could have their equivalent of customer first deliver this type of service. Now, this has been in place for 3 years now in Manchester. It's successful and has saved them tens of millions of pounds. So there is no reason, unless our social workers do social work differently from people in Manchester, which I think broadly there are professional standards, they will not. It is a reasonable expectation that we could save this. Even if we took 7 months to implement this change, we would still save over £500,000. So it is feasible for us to do. That's in the first year and over £1 million in the second. So this is something we could do. And if we did some other things too, we could also release savings, like encourage people to move towards direct payments. So there are plenty more things that we could do to make social work more efficient for people and reduce the grant to the Health and Social Care Partnership. I don't want to elaborate on that. I think that's enough detail for now because I've elaborated it on in the past and you haven't adopted it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swift. Does anyone else want to come in? I'll take...
Thank you very much, Provost. As usual, it's one of our showcase events, the setting the budget, and I would compliment all the speakers so far for their erudite contributions, although some of them, I have to say, have talked absolute rubbish today. And if there's any question of any legal problems with the Council, see yous in court. Long-term planning. This Council has based itself in long-term planning. The difficulty is that we have no idea, as our leader has said, what the financial situation is going to be next year. We've already heard indications from the Institute of Public Policy Research that we're facing a 2.5 billion reduction in the block grant in Scotland year on year. And I think we can rely on that with some confidence, because this is a government in Westminster who is not dedicated to making local government better. It wants to destroy public services. That is restructuring the state, turning back all the achievements since the last war. And I joined the leader and some other colleagues with the trade union demonstration at Holyrood, where we were campaigning and lobbying for a modest increase in income tax that the Scottish Government has the power to undertake that would obviate the need it would raise £500 million, and no council in Scotland would be facing these additional rises. But at the same time, we can't escape from the fact that the position we're in, and we planned for reductions, but the Chancellor's autumn statement has put us in this unforeseen situation where we have to find additional savings. In terms of, can I just briefly talk about workforce planning? As we've said in the past, we're always prepared to look at any means of delivering services efficiently. But what I don't support is a deprofessionalisation of social work provision, or reducing the number of qualified staff who can undertake the assessments. And let's not forget it, social work is in East Renfrewshire is one of the highest regarded, the highest performing in Scotland, certainly in terms of child protection. It is unconscionable to put ourselves in a position where we will be unable to ensure the safety of our children. Unfortunately, some parents are unable to keep their children clean, safe and protected, and it requires compulsory intervention by social work services. And we cannot be in a position as a council where children are placed in danger because we do not have sufficient frontline qualified social work staff to undertake that. I'm also aware, that there's some of these savings, reduction of support staff. I don't think there is any easy savings in that direction. As a council, I think we're at the stage we protect our frontline services, but there are support services that are vital, that allow our frontline staff to carry out our job. And I think we're very much teetering on the brink where our staff are in a position where they will not be able to deliver the services that we ask of them. And I cannot support any reduction in our frontline staff. And a few things are flagged up like PR. Oh, we don't need PR. But I think we ought to remember as a council, East Renfrewshire has always been very vulnerable. I think we were all aware of that back in 1995-96 as a small authority taking on large-scale strategic services such as education, roads, social work. But we have delivered them, and we've delivered the best education service in Scotland. We won't hear anything about it indefinitely until after May, but I do have anxieties about local government form that could put the existence of this council in jeopardy. We have to continue to deliver the best services we can and tell not only our own people but the other councils there that we can do it in East Renfrewshire. We do not need to be part of a greater Glasgow, which we have heard recently reports emerging from some parliamentarians friendly to the Scottish Government in Edinburgh, that we should base local government on health board areas. And that's fine if you live in Dumfries and Galloway or Fife, where it's coterminous with the council. But do we seriously think that we would be able to deliver the standard of services that we do and have done in East Renfrewshire as part of a greater Glasgow authority? I don't think so. I don't think anybody in this chamber would support that position. So I think it's something to bear in mind when you're criticising East Renfrewshire, that you're doing the job of those who would like to take this council out of existence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lafferty. Councillor Montague, you wanted to come in.
Thanks very much, Provost. This is the 20th anniversary of the birth of our council and second decade, and The Council has built up an excellent reputation wherever you go, in whatever circumstances, and you say you're from East Renfrewshire Council, then people respond by saying, oh, East Renfrewshire really good at this, really good at that, we're looking to you to copy that model. Not even mentioning, you know, as Councillor Lafferty had about education and the great results that we get in every school punching above its weight. So we've got a good reputation, and that's been achieved not by chance, but by political leadership, manifesto, and not least our workforce, who have done an excellent job over that 20 years. Also, they go beyond their job, such personal investment. We've got great workforce, and it's disappointing to hear from the Conservatives that they would seek to impose a tax on a sick worker for the first day of absence. I think that's just shocking, but it's reflective. The opposition's amendment is based on assumptions, not fact. It's airy-fairy. It's not, I don't think, well thought out or presented to us here. The various assumptions there about refugees, somebody appointed to do the job, to look after or work with refugees, is surely a specialist job, and it's not just anybody who could do that kind of job. So the other aspect is about the gritting of roads. I cannot believe that that's been put forward by the Conservatives, that they would seek to stop gritting of our roads between 12 o'clock at night, 5 o'clock in the morning, and the chaos that would ensue, the accidents, the danger to our community. I'm just shocked by it. So, lastly, on the point of our workforce, International Women's Day was yesterday. I have to commend our council again. If you look round the room, and it's just a reflection of the females, not least our chief executive, heads of service who are females. So again, I have to commend that situation, but also their expertise and their input to the excellent running of this council. Thank you, Provost.
Thank you, Councillor Montague. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. I would agree with quite a lot the Councillor Montague said there. The managing absence, I've never heard anything as ridiculous as to take a day's pay off people. If anybody goes round the schools, they'll see how many hours teachers and staff put in that they don't get paid for. So, will they go in when they're ill? Possibly, and spread whatever they've got round the school, which might result, instead of a day off, a week off. I don't know why you would put that onto this. The gritting, couldn't agree more either. Gritting goes when it goes. If they get warned at 2 o'clock in the morning that it's frosty, they go out. So to take the service away from midnight till 5 in the morning, you're not providing for residents, and I don't know what they listen to, but I get pestered into the ground that my street's not gritted, my street's not gritted. So if you take it away, it'll be worse. The only other comment I had was to do with the street parking charges. I would like to see that come in as quick as possible to stop some of our local businesses having their private parking of 14 or 15 cars taking up spaces which stop the shops actually getting customers. So I would like that to be moved in now. Start the process straight away. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Right. Councillor McAlpine, and I'll take Councillor O'Kane.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to support Councillor Fletcher in the motion today and the budget that we're setting today. I think this is a great budget given the circumstances we're in. We're saying no new cuts, which is fantastic for this year. There's no compulsory redundancies for this year, which is fantastic. And we're protecting public services for the most vulnerable. So I support Councillor Fletcher and this administration in making these difficult decisions. As far as our Conservative colleagues are concerned, again, myself and Councillor Lafferty and Councillor Fletcher were with the trade unions demonstrating at the Scottish Parliament, and our Unison and GMB and EIS colleagues were all there to fight these cuts from John Swinney, and we are together on that one to support reducing the effect in East Renfrewshire. So for the Conservatives to suggest managing absence and withholding the first day's pay, I support Councillor Robertson in this one. They say that's an outrage, and I'm sure our trade union colleagues will be totally outraged when they hear about this withholding the first day's pay. This will really hit the poorest people, and I've got to say I don't support that at all. It is important to know that managing absence is taken very seriously in this council, and there's the actual absence for the council is going down, and I think we should be congratulated in that, and I think the staff are doing a great job. There's new systems in place, the computerisation, the new occupational health and review panels, particularly in the IJB and environment, are all encouraging people to get back to their work. And I fully support that, and I think the staff do a great job. But can I just make my final point, Provost, that East Renfrewshire Council has had to lose staff and reduce staff, and we are now asking staff to do much more with a lot less. And I think our Conservative colleagues should remember that. And in fact, East Renfrewshire Council has 361 full-time equivalent staff at the 1st of October 2015, which is a decrease of 473 staff since April 2009. So we're actually asking staff to do things with 473 staff less. So I think our staff do a great job, and I would support the motion from Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Councillor McAlpine. Councillor O'Kane.
Thank you, Provost. Just a few comments to make. I think someone spoke earlier about traditions in the budget meeting. The tradition that the administration always votes for its motion. I think one of the other suggestions that's emerging is that a different leader of the Conservative group delivers the amendment every year, and I don't know if they're going to try and get a full complement of everyone having a shot at it by next year, but it'll certainly be interesting to see. I just want to speak about the amendment. Councillor Miller, when referring to the amendment, said, and he sort of gave it away, he said this isn't an attack on workers. Well, I fundamentally disagree. This is an attack on the workers of East Renfrewshire. This is an attack on hard workers, teachers, social workers, admin staff, clerical staff, support staff. That's what this amendment seeks to attack. I mean, let's start with the absence issue around removing the first day of pay. Firstly, with no cognisance to our trade union colleagues, with no admission that we'd have to negotiate that process with our trade union colleagues, quite fundamentally, you don't solve issues around absence by carrying out punitive measures on hard-working staff. You work to find strategies to ensure that staff can be at their work and that are responding to their issues. So we can't ride roughshod over nationally and locally negotiated agreements for teachers or for any other member of local government staff. So that's just not going to fly at all. I just want to talk a little bit about the other proposals within education. I had thought we were coming out of the winter, but apparently the winter discontent is alive and well when it comes to the Conservative amendment, because a 2% reduction in schools' heating, I think parents will be aghast at that proposal and that suggestion that we should further reduce school heating. I think school heating is set at a level that is safe and that is healthy for children, and that is carried out by officers in the property and technical services team to ensure the heating is set at the right level. So I don't think we'll be looking at a 2% further reduction in schools' heating. Again, when it comes to reviewing burial charges, as I say, I think we should take cognisance of the fact that we have the best burial rates in Scotland, and that I don't think local people want to see an increase in those charges. So if I can come to the further cuts in jobs which are proposed in this amendment, removing 2 posts in community warden service, removing 2 more posts in community planning services. I mean, the Conservative group seem to think that community planning is solely concerned with community councils. Community planning is actually about the way in which East Renfrewshire plans with all of its partners, whether that be the fire service, the police service, the NHS, our voluntary sector, and our community groups that include tenants and residents associations, that include obviously the community councils which are established currently. We can't just remove 2 posts from that vital work to deliver the single outcome agreement. Everyone in this chamber is committed to the single outcome agreement, and therefore we need our officers to be there to help deliver that for everyone in our community. And I would just say on the removal of a post in the PR department, I mean, the suggestion that we should just remove a post because ER magazine is gone is ridiculous. The amount of work that's carried out in the PR department to deal with concerns from residents. Look at Twitter, you look at Facebook, you look at our excellent response mechanisms we have, where if someone tweets or they Facebook the council, they get a response directly. They get told how to get their bin uplifted, or when the school holidays are, or any issue that they raise is dealt with. That's what the PR department are working hard to do. That's what the staff are there for. So I can't support this amendment because of its clear and front attack on staff and on jobs. This council, this administration is committed to no compulsory redundancies, to straining every sinew with our trade union colleagues, to protect workers, to invest in workers, and I will not support an amendment that seeks to reduce jobs.
Councillor Buchanan was wanting to come back in again, and you'd already spoken. I'm going to restrict speaking to one time. So, Councillor McCaskill, you've already spoken when you seconded Councillor Miller, and Councillor Swift has already spoken. So, it's to let all the councillors get a chance to speak. Okay, so is there...
Thank you very much, Provost. My colleagues, I think, have very ably demolished the Conservative amendment, and I won't rehearse all the things that have been said, because I really do think your amendment has been comprehensively destroyed. We have our own workforce in the gallery. All I would really hope for is that everyone who lives in East Renfrewshire Council or works for this council actually has access to this Conservative amendment. And I hope they understand it before they go to the polls in May this year, and indeed May next year as well, because I think the vast majority of people would absolutely be horrified, whether it's cutting the gritting service during the night, whether it's, as I say, the cutting or stopping the pay of staff when they are absent for 1 day or more. I just think all of that would horrify people, and it's quite clear from the bulk of this amendment that most of it is entirely speculative. I mean, £500,000 for the workforce planning and social work. They've been as well putting in £5 million because it's so airy-fairy without any specifics to justify that figure. Why would we accept the amendment anyway this year? Because very good management planning within the council, we are able to deliver the budget this year without further cuts. So why in God's earth would anyone want to impose further unnecessary cuts on local people in this financial year? I've already indicated in my speech that officers, all our heads of service and directors, are now actively working and how we will address the gap for next year. And I'm not going to pretend that that will be easy, and there may be difficult decisions that we need to look at for the next year. And I am sure they will look at every aspect of the council's business, no doubt including some of the things that the Conservatives have put forward today in terms of how we may do that in the future. But I have to say some of the things like the gritting service have already come forward as options and been rejected by us as an administration, because we certainly do not think that our local residents would welcome any reduction in the gritting service in cold weather. So that will happen over the next year, but frankly there's no reason to accept any of those further cuts and have them imposed on local residents when we are already managing a difficult budget situation for this year. There's nothing new which I think would be attractive, not to ourselves, but more importantly, to either the workforce or any resident who lives in East Renfrewshire Council. And I won't, as I say, rehearse the debate we've already had, simply to say that having given an awful lot of time in this, both at officer level and councillor level, I think we have the best budget that we can possibly do in the circumstances, and I would commend the budget to the whole council here today.
Okay, we'll go to the vote now.
Thank you, Provost. The motion before the Council this morning, proposed by Councillor Fletcher and seconded by Councillor Buchanan, is as printed in your papers. The amendment, as proposed by Councillor Miller and seconded by Councillor McCaskill, is the amendment that's been circulated to the members this morning in relation to the savings as far as the estimates for 2016-17 are concerned. Those members voting in favour of the motion, if they could please show. And those for the amendment, please show. Thank you, Provost. The vote is 13 for the motion and 6 for the amendment. The motion is carried.
We now move on to item 5 in the agenda. General Fund Capital Plan 2016-17 to 2023-24. This report puts forward proposals for the Council's capital programme for the next 8 years. We are being asked to approve at this stage the 2016-17 projects only. Future years will be subject to ongoing review. We are also being asked to authorise officers to progress the 2016-17 projects. I would now invite Councillor Fletcher to comment on the report.
Thank you very much, Provost. My comments will be brief because I've already covered this in my speech in the revenue budget for the Council. My colleagues will remember the slide. I don't know if we're able to get it back in from the presentation, where we do highlight some very extensive and large projects. The capital programme is £155 million invested over a period of 8 years. For a small to medium-sized council like our own, it's very ambitious, very robust, very challenging, but something I think we can all be very proud of. And I would simply draw your attention to some of the major items that we plan to do. The new Barrhead High School, 2 new primary schools for the Newton Mearns area, including the new joint faith campus, which is probably a first, I think, in the world. A major upgrade to Crookford Primary, as well as new family centres in Newford Grove and Auchenbach. And over the years, the Council has demonstrated with its very innovative partnership. We'll open shortly the new Eastwood Health and Care Centre. Hopefully will open in the summer and is on track to open in the summer. And we have continued investment in our sports centres, which are now operated by our new Culture and Leisure Trust. And of course, a number of very exciting new initiatives which are being delivered as a result of the City deal. So I think it's a very extensive capital programme, something, as I say, we can all be very proud of, and I would commend the plan to the Council here this morning.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Provost. I'm happy to second the proposed plan, and I think in essence it shows what we want to do for the area, and unlike the amendment to the previous motion, which effectively looked to privatise services, victimise those unfit for work, reduce staff, reduce services and indeed freeze our children, this capital plan takes us forward in an area for growth and to improve services, to improve the quality of life for our residents, and I'm more than happy to commend the report.
Do we have any amendments? No? No, okay.
am obliged, and I thank the administration for not merely demonstrating their economic childishness, but their temper tantrum economic childishness. The simple fact of the matter is that there is not a hope of making this general fund capital plan when you have contract building inflation of 22%. And it is time to stop fantasising to the public about money that simply doesn't exist. The money tree has died. If we consider this, that we are going to use a one-off use of reserves, here's the news. Once you use reserves, they're spent. There is no such thing as a two-off use of reserves. You have got a funding gap next year on your revenue, and you've got a funding gap in your capital. Now, you can do what we said in the amendment, or next year you're going to come here and announce compulsory redundancies. Lots and lots of compulsory redundancies. That is the reality, and it is a reality that your wet hanky speeches of earlier on are not going to change.
More some questions than some comments, really, Provost. I was under the impression that the new denominational and non-denominational primary schools in Newton Mearns were about £12 million each, which would make about £24 million. We're now looking at about £32 million. That's a lot of money. Now, maybe that was just a wrong impression, but that was the indicative amounts that I'd heard bandied around.
Thank you, Provost. Councillor Swift is correct. The original estimates for the primary schools were indeed closer to the £12 million level. But of course, as has already been pointed out, construction inflation is running at extremely high levels at the moment, and the Council has tried to take a prudent view to make sure that we do forward plan and that we take account of what the current prices will be, and that's why the rates have been increased, and we've built an increased provision into the plan to make sure that the schools are provided to the level that we require. In addition to that, the changes in early years provision again are likely to put further requirements for spend on the Council in future years, and again we've tried to look to the future and plan in the requirements for additional places for the very early years pupils when we're building the new schools.
Thank you, Mrs McCrossan.
Thank you, Provost. I mean, that's a 50% uplift in our proposed costs for these schools, which is very substantial. And we're only needing to build these schools on the basis that the Scottish Government have imposed house building burdens on us. How much money will the Scottish Government be contributing to this £32 million from a grant settlement?
Mrs McCrossan.
Clearly, when we have our annual grant settlements, which are only at the moment available on an annual basis, cognizance is taken of the number of Band D properties that we're going to have in the area, and our grant aided expenditure assessment, or the need for us to spend, also takes account of population in the area, and that's based on projections which the government has for all of Scotland. So each year when we get our grant settlement, there will be an increase which takes account of any increased population assumptions, but we can't tell you exact figures for what those are in future years at the moment.
Councillor McAlpine.
Yes, thank you. I welcome this new denominational primary nursery for Mearns and the new non-denominational primary for primary nursery for Mearns. I'm delighted to see this new facility, and my question's really to the Director of Education. I understand that the Scottish Government have given us money for these new schools, and I suppose that's the question for the Director, but also, given the population in Newton Mearns, I understand that St Cadoc's School is full and that the Catholic community and Jewish community have been consulted on these proposals, and my understanding is that both communities are very welcome of this development, but I'd be interested to know the view from the Director of Education.
Mrs Shaw, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Provost. I can confirm that the Scottish Government is, through the Scottish Futures Trust, has contributed $300,000 to the new Faith School joint campus. But the rest of the funding for both denominational and non-denominational schools is from the capital reserve of the Council.
Okay. Thank you.
My question was, does the local Jewish and Catholic community welcome this proposal?
Again, through the Provost, yes, I think that's well documented. We obviously have carried out an extensive consultation and continue indeed to work in partnership with both faith communities to ensure that we get a school that is fit for purpose and indeed unique.
Okay. Does any other councillor have any other comments? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Provost. Can I welcome the roads investment of 3.1 million? It was a very healthy headline figure, but when you break it down over 8 years, that's only 400,000. Our roads are crumbling. We need to do something sooner than that and get moving with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other councillors have any other comments? No. Okay. The purpose of this report is to seek approval for the proposed Housing Revenue Account HRA budget for 2016-17. Normally, the presentation of the HRA budget is accompanied by a proposal to approve a rent increase. However, members will recall that in February 2015, Council approved a rent increase for 2015 to 2018. For this reason, it is not necessary to seek approval for a rent increase. However, approval is still required for the proposed HRA budget for the forthcoming financial year. As convener, I am delighted with the performance of the Housing Service. As the report details, we provide services that are of a quality that is higher than the Scottish average, yet we continue to charge a rent that is lower than the Scottish average. The Council is asked to approve this proposed HRA budget for 2016-17.
Gordon. Provost, much pleasure in seconding the report, which will, I'm sure, despite the challenging environment we're in today, maintain the quality of our housing services, invest in our housing stock, whilst maintaining rent levels below the Scottish average and that below all other social landlords in East Renfrewshire.
Thank you, Councillor Lafferty. Do we have any amendments? No. Would any member like to comment? Councillor Swift.
Apologies. Need to put the thing on. I just wondered what progress we had made on rent harmonisation, because it's something we've been talking about intermittently over the years, and intermittently we seem to have made no progress whatsoever. So I'm curious, given that there is a gulf in the rents charged on different sides of the authority, if we are proposing to ever make any progress on that.
Councillor Devlin, you wish to comment? Head of Housing, Phil Dodge, to give us an answer.
Certainly.
Through the Provost, a paper was put to and agreed by the Council's Cabinet either last year or the year before, which agreed to defer looking into rent harmonisation pending review of the impact of the changes in relation to welfare reform, such as things like universal credit, because of an uncertain impact upon the rental income of the council. The housing revenue account income could increase or decrease both as a result of rent harmonisation and the introduction of universal credit. It was felt inappropriate to look at the two things at the same time.
Okay. Does any other councillor have a comment? Councillor McCaskill?
I'm obliged, Provost. If I could draw Council's attention to page 181, paragraph 14 and the table therein. Now, it will immediately become obvious
Councillor
as
McCaskill, give people a chance to find a page.
Page 181, paragraph 14, the table. Now, as has been commented by other councillors, the East Renfrewshire Council is currently recording the lowest council in that particular table. I question, however, whether that is continue. Council rent, I beg your pardon, gross rent in that particular table. I question whether it is possible to continue in that vein, given the financial pressures that have been shown to us earlier on, whether that can continue past 2018, and I would like to highlight it to the Council at the moment that I don't think that's feasible.
Thank you, Councillor McCaskill. Can we agree the report?
This debate would not be complete if we didn't hear from Councillor McCaskill on the level of increase he would really like to impose on our tenants.
Can we agree the report?
The purpose of this report is to make recommendations to the Council in relation to the proposed 5-year housing capital programme for 2016-17 to 2021-22. The vast majority of expenditure on the housing capital programme relates to the need to continue to meet the Scottish Housing Quality Standard. Housing staff, in conjunction with colleagues from other services and departments, are continuously striving to ensure that quality is maintained and that any problems can be addressed as soon as they occur. Rigorous procurement methods are used to secure value for money. We are placing an increase in emphasis on customer care, on getting it right for our customers and getting it right first time. To achieve this, we are engaging with all our tenants before, during and after the process in order to listen, learn and improve. The Council is asked to approve the proposed housing capital programme for 2016-17 to 2021-22. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Devlin. Do we have a seconder for the report?
Happy to formally second, Provost. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McCaskill.
I am obliged. Again, if I could draw the Council's attention to page 194, paragraph 24, the conclusions and the final sentence. They're very slow with figures, but I've already commented on that earlier. If I could draw your attention to the last sentence, which says, however, resources are tight and prudent financial management is required. In the light of my many comments today, can we expect any kind of prudent financial management from this administration?
Thank you. Would any other member like to comment? Councillor Montague.
Thanks very much, Provost. Can I remind Councillor McCaskill that the first item on the agenda was all about prudent financial management of this Council under the stewardship of our excellent Chief Finance Officer Margaret Macross and Chief Accountant Barbara Clark. So we already have achieved the prudent financial management.
I would like. Thank you. Councillor Miller. It wasn't me. It said it was Councillor McCaskill.
Can we agree the report? Sorry. I know that the whole team has really worked hard and there's been a lot of work done over the last year, so thank you very much. That concludes this morning's business and thank you for your attendance.